It's not breaking news, but when it comes to spouses, sometimes we disagree on things. And that's no different when it comes to retirement planning. In this video, we're going to cover the top 5 reasons that most spouses or married couples tend to disagree on when it comes to retirement planning. Hi everyone, this is Logan Sadler. Thank you again for stopping by the Financial Beat YouTube channel. Back at you this week with another video. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and click subscribe and go ahead and check out some of our other videos here on the library. Today's video, I have a fun one because I'm actually married, so I know how this kind of goes when it comes to a marriage. There's always give and get, right? And sometimes you don't always think on the same page or don't always have the same concerns, or sometimes you might not even have the same thoughts at all as far as what questions to ask. And a lot of that stuff comes up when I'm meeting with clients. The first one I want to talk about is how much risk should we have in a portfolio or in our retirement plan? See this one all the time, right? If there's 2 people coming in, a lot of the times one might be more conservative, one might be more aggressive, and it really does matter, right? I think having something where you both can agree on it and really having the education behind those decisions to me is very important, because a lot of the times maybe the aggressive spouse might not understand all of the risk that actually does come along with that and what the impact could be to being aggressive, right? And same with the roles reversed. Maybe someone's really, really conservative. A lot of the times they think that, oh, I'm conservative because I don't want to lose money. But a lot of the times they don't understand that not making a certain amount of money on your money over that expected time frame, maybe a 20-year retirement or a 30-year retirement, could really change the impact on how much dollars there are to spend and enjoy that retirement. So it's really important to making sure that you have that conversation to find the appropriate risk for you in your portfolio and your retirement plan that you both are comfortable. Number 2, when does it make sense to retire, right? We've seen this one a lot with clients where I can think of a good client of ours who came on board about 8 years ago or so, and they were on like a 5-year plan to retire. Well, long story short, the wife ended up retiring on that 5-year plan and the husband did not. He said, well, if I could wrap up a few more things here at work, right, I'll retire next year. Next year turned into 3 more years, right? So it was important, I feel, to have those conversations ahead of time. When are you thinking of retiring? I know sometimes one spouse can retire earlier. Sometimes we maybe envision going out at the same time. But I think it's important to have those conversations of realistically, when are we expecting to retire? I know most of us, we want to retire tomorrow, right? But it's got to make sense and it's got to be realistic. So when do we both plan to retire? What are we going to do differently to help us get us to that point? Or what will we have to sacrifice? Or maybe we don't have to sacrifice anything at all. But I think it's super, super important to have those conversations of what are our expectations of retirement and what are we going to do to get there when we're ready to retire. Number 3, how much money do we want to leave to the kids? I see this one a lot, right? And sometimes people don't have kids. Maybe it's leaving money to charities or other organizations like that. But let's use this example of a husband and wife that have kids. And I see this a lot where sometimes one of the spouses says, you know what, I'd rather not spend as much of our money and leave a legacy or leave money behind to the kids. My parents didn't leave me anything, so I would like to leave some money behind to them. We hear that a lot. It's not a crazy thought, right? A lot of us might have thought that or maybe like the idea of that. And there's a couple different ways to go about it. I always say typically with a lot of the clients we're meeting with, typically there is enough assets to go around to where you can kind of make each of those, calibers tick there and make each of those situations work. But it's super important to have the conversation about how do you envision that? Are you planning on leaving behind a legacy? If we are, how much? And how much could it potentially hurt our portfolio or our retirement? Or how much would we have to leave on the table as far as income now and on all those other things? I always tell people there's a lot of different ways to solve for that. I have some clients where it's as simple as, hey, I'd like to leave behind some money, so I'm going to spend less. Or sometimes you could actually get life insurance in place to where maybe you enjoy your money a little bit now more than you were going to, but you have some life insurance in place to where if you passed away, money's going to go to the kids, right? Tax-free. Number 4 is, do we want to downsize to a smaller house in retirement? I see this one a lot, and a lot of us might be thinking that way, but it is something that's very important to have that conversation because, sometimes we're raising kids or we have a lot of people over, we're entertaining, maybe we're having a lot of fun, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and now all of a sudden, maybe those 60-year age rolls around, we have that birthday, and we don't entertain as much, or we don't have as many people over, or maybe our kids have moved out and we go to their house now, or whatever the case is. Maybe you're moving out of state and in the future. there's a lot of different, instances we see where a lot of the times it does make sense to downsize in retirement, or maybe before retirement as things are starting to slow down maybe. That is a conversation that's super important to have, because again, sometimes we might not agree on that, and it might take some time to warm the other one up to it, or it might take time for that one to realize that they don't really want to downsize yet, or they're not ready to do that decision yet, or it doesn't make sense for you guys. So that's another conversation I feel super, super important is, how do you envision that next step? Are we planning on downsizing? Is this house maintainable? And I'll be honest with you, it's super important to be honest with yourselves in that conversation, because I know a lot of us like to think that we'll never get older. Things will always be, I'll always be able to do the work on the house or hire the right people or do whatever I got to do. The downside is, the bigger the house, right, the more expenses that there is for either maintenance or more labor on you to do them. So you really want to be, honest with yourself as far as how that's going to play out over the next few years, and make sure you kind of have a plan in place to cover that down the road. The next is, this is one of the things we start off with every new client. This is the last one, number 5. I would say it's very important to have the conversation of, how do you envision that retirement? What does your ideal retirement look like? Because you'd be surprised how sometimes spouses come in and they think they have the same envisionment. Well, we're going to travel, right? Well, then come in, maybe the spouse, the wife or the husband will say, well, I don't really want to travel. I've been working this whole time. I really just want to relax, enjoy the grandkids. I maybe want to take 1 trip a year, not 5, right? Or vice versa. There's so many different ways that people envision retirement, social groups or not being social, one of those things, right? Active, non-active. There's so many of those things that come up. And I really feel when you're building a retirement plan, yes, it matters about the financials, how much assets we have to work with, as well as what do we need those assets to do to support our desired lifestyle in retirement. So I would say those are the 5 conversations we're having all the time with clients, where we see where sometimes they'll disagree when it comes to a marriage on how exactly those are going to unfold. Again, not the biggest thing in the world, but it is something where I would definitely recommend having that conversation with your advisor or with yourselves, and making sure that you guys can agree to enjoy, that marriage bliss as it transfers into retirement. So hopefully you found that educational. And if you guys have any questions on that, let us know. If not, go ahead and click subscribe and check out some of our other videos. We'll see you next time.